Thursday, November 10th. We're inching our way through this week. Good morning, good day. Thomas Miller on the Fun Astrology Podcast. Hope you are having a good start or wherever you're picking this podcast up to your Thursday. Thank you so much for listening. Couple of big aspects in the sky today. One has already happened. Mercury squared Saturn early this morning, a little short of 3 o'clock. The other one, let's just mention, and then we'll come back and dissect. Also want to keep these ones in front of us the next couple of days, but also today, Venus, this is one I want to focus on, Venus trines Neptune. So before I recorded this morning, I've been scouring some headlines just to see where things are. Not much has changed since yesterday. I found an interesting tweet. I just landed on this on Twitter, and I was looking at Brazil because I was just checking these other hot spots to see if they were still hot. Yep, Brazil still is. Iran still is. Of course, the Ukraine still is. Here's this guy that says this: you could not script a more fitting November drama for 2022. Here we are, 24 hours later, and we still don't know the congressional majority? Question mark. Brazil's presidential election last week was closest in history, and it was over at 8 p.m. Disgraceful. It gets worse, and then he's got an 8-part deal. I thought, okay, so where do we come back to that? What have we just dealt with? How many surprises have you had in your life over the last 72 hours? You know mine. I've had 2 big ones. One we talked about Sunday night. The other one was a personal thing that happened on Monday. Right there, right on the energy. Uranus. What rules the collective? Uranus. So there's this just overshadow of surprise. Well, now today we have Venus wanting to work with Neptune. Happens to be in a trine. If you and I were just talking, then I would be thinking spiritual relationship. Now, that could be spiritual relationship with yourself. Venus is in the later degrees now of Scorpio, so we're going to be digging up some old, deep stuff. If you saw our thing Sunday night on either YouTube or the Facebook group, you know that for me, this was like really old. I'll have to refer you to that story. It's on YouTube. If you want to catch it, just quick access, go to the Fun Astrology Podcast channel on YouTube and watch last Sunday night's Level Up meeting. But I would say on the positive side of this aspect, this is really tuning your spiritual antenna. Neptune is in Pisces. We are connected to the home office here. And interesting that we have Mercury and Venus together in an aspect today, early today. So culminating right here as you're getting up and getting your day started. Mercury, the planet of communication. What is our most important communication but to ourselves? Venus, the love planet. How are we giving ourselves love first? How are we tuning in to our spiritual connection, that antenna represented by Neptune, which is in retrograde? See, this is all about review. This is all about digging into the past, digging into things that are wanting to come up, staying close to intuition. Neptune. Now that's for you and me. Let's flip it back to the collective, because that's a lot of what this week has been about. Found something interesting on Astro.com talking about Venus related to elections. Here we are, Venus in this trine with Neptune. Basically what it was saying is that Venus every 8 years comes back to the same point in the sky. So for U.S. presidential elections, for example, every other election, Venus would be in the same place in the sky. Now, there's another body, luminary, that is in the same place, generally in the sky, during United States elections, and that's the sun, because they are always held in the early part of November. So that puts the sun in the middle degrees of Scorpio. So for this election, the sun and Venus were both in Scorpio, 5 degrees apart. As I'm recording this, the sun is getting ready to rise in about an hour. Venus will be right behind, along with Mercury. So that puts that stellium in a trine to Neptune, a waxing trine or an applying trine at the time of the election. Now, what this article in Astro.com was saying, the old Mesopotamian astrologers, first of all, when there was such a thing of casting a deciding vote, would look at where was Venus. Was it the morning Venus, the morning star, or was it the evening star Venus? So let me just read you this. This was interesting. So Venus in this election was the morning star. Venus as a morning star was considered more independent, desiring to function alone or give favors which are powered with rashness, haste, or free thinking. Generally, this does not favor the political networking and backroom deals needed for any rival to rise to power. For this reason, it is rare for the king or the king's chosen heir to lose power at a morning star election. And it traced it back 2 times when it did happen in the United States. One was Franklin Delano Roosevelt in 1933, when he took the White House from the Republicans, and then Ronald Reagan in 1981 when he took it from the Democrats. Every other election since 1900 with Venus as a morning star has resulted in no change to the quote-unquote family who was ruling the White House. I thought that was a well-done little analysis and kind of an aside that you might not have heard in the political summaries of the election. You only get it here. But let's apply this one more way. So the collective, Uranus, just had an election, right? Spot on a full moon, total lunar eclipse. Now here's the difference between a conscious collective and an unconscious collective. Taking what our little Twitter poster said for granted, in modern day 2022, he's right, especially with Uranus, ruling technology involved. Everybody should go to bed, done, complete, knowing what's going on, life moves on. In an unconscious collective, you delay, you drag out, you armchair quarterback, you empower that Mars retrograding back through Gemini, more division, and you kick the can. You don't fix the problem. And in this scenario, Venus rises and Neptune deceives. My point is this: it's not political. It never is. The point is we, you and I, have to do things individually to raise our own consciousness, and then somehow spread that to another person and another person and another person, because the only way to fix this dilemma, as we all know, is to change the consciousness of the collective. And that's where we come back to this chart and we look at, how can we do that? And I'd a whole lot rather be about that business than the secular, mundane business. Just a real interesting observation, digging way down in there about how the sky still reflects as above, so below. Have a wonderful day. See you back tomorrow. We got the Sun-Saturn square, so we'll talk about that in the morning.